Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for taking time out to stop by. We've posted the one-on-one interview I did after the Mindspeak session with Mike Macharia. Do have a look at it. It's on Rich Wrap-Ups if you care to take a look. My home thoughts turn to two themes. One from a film called Scarface, which I still consider an outrageously good movie. There is one piece when they've both just arrived in Miami. They are illegal immigrants, and you see this banner across the sky, "The world is yours," and it made me think this morning. And then I liked the look of this dessert from Wolfsmith Fine Dining in Los Angeles. It looked very tasty. Political reflections. Nigeria's Buhari praises Jonathan for peaceful handover. In an unprecedented step, Jonathan phoned Buhari to concede defeat and issued a statement urging his supporters to accept the result, a signal of deepening democracy in Africa's most populous nation that few had expected. President Jonathan was a worthy opponent, and I extend the hand of fellowship to him, Buhari told journalists and supporters to loud applause, wearing a black cap and a kaftan. "We have proven to the world that we are people who have embraced democracy. We have put one-party state behind us." The 72-year-old general, who first came to power 3 decades ago via a military coup, campaigned as a born-again Democrat intent on cleaning up the corrupt politics of Africa's most populous nation. Big margin of victory. Buhari got 15.4 million votes to Jonathan's 13.3 million, and essentially meant that this was not contestable, which was one of the key risks that I'd seen, but the Afrobarometer poll clearly was out of date. My friend in Kinshasa, Hervé Gogo, called it a democracy earthquake, and he is not wrong. I'll put up a photograph that Muhammad Buhari posted on January the 10th. This is Buhari, and then March 28th, a step toward the journey begins. The New York Times is quoting Pierre Engelbert. "It is a giant leap for democracy in Nigeria and Africa, particularly at a time when many incumbents are trying to change their constitution to extend their legal term in office." And that is a point which I've previously spoken about. The events in Ouagadougou are an example, DRC. It's not as easy as it once was to go beyond your constitutional term. Iran nuclear talks push through deadline. Deal is close. Iran told to make a deal by dawn, which they didn't. And this is an interesting article in the New York Times. As US and Iran seek nuclear deals, Saudi Arabia makes its own moves. As America talks to Iran, Saudi Arabia is lashing out against it. The kingdom, Iran's chief regional rival, is leading airstrikes against Iranian-backed faction in Yemen, backing a blitz in Idlib, Syria by jihadists fighting the Iranian-backed Assad regime, warning Washington not to allow the Iranian-backed militia to capture too much of Iraq during the fight to roll back the Islamic State, through Egypt, a major beneficiary of Saudi aid. The kingdom is backing plans for a combined Arab military force to combat Iranian influence around the region, with another major aid recipient, Pakistan. Saudi Arabia is also expected to step up its efforts to develop a nuclear bomb, potentially setting off an arms race in the region. As America talks to Iran, Saudi Arabia is lashing out against it. My conclusions are, and I refer you back to something I wrote on the 28th of October 2013, if the Pax Americana in the Middle East were a 3-legged stool, with the US the most important leg, then Israel and Saudi Arabia are the other 2 legs of that stool. And I said then, neither Riyadh nor Tel Aviv are aligned with President Obama's Iranian rapprochement, and Saudi Arabia in particular has become increasingly forthright and is even threatening its own pivot away from the US. That was in 2013. You can see they pivoted away. Airstrikes carried out by a Saudi-led alliance on Monday hit a weapons storage depot in Sana'a, Yemen, a city the Iranian-backed Houthi movement controls. The Houthi militia and agents of the former president, supported by Iran, insist to meddle in Yemen, reshuffle the cards, rob the Yemeni will, make a coup against the constitutional legitimacy, and reject all peaceful solutions, said Prince Al Faisal, who's been the Foreign Secretary since 1975. Currency markets: Euro 107.45, got as high as 107.90 this morning. Dollar index, when I checked last, 98.11. Japanese yen has popped over 120, 120.20. Swissy 0.9697. Pound 147.59 has fallen a whole point. Aussie 0.7596, India rupee 62.355, South Korean won 1102.91, the Rial 319.32, but I'm looking for a push above 4. Egyptian pound 762.92, and the South African rand 1206.03. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart. My target is 110. Euro dollar, I'll put up a 3-month chart. My target is now 0.93. Gold, I'll put up a 6-month chart of that. We're now trading 1181.17. I believe we're going to break down to a triple-digit print at some point this year. Crude oil, $47.42. Expect a big move below 40. Sub-Saharan Africa, President Barack Obama spoke with President Joseph Kabila of the DRC on Tuesday, the White House said. The two leaders spoke about their commitment to ending the threat of armed groups, specifically the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, the White House said in a statement. Obama, and this is probably the point he was trying to make, underscored the need for peaceful and credible elections in the country in 2016. Mahmoud Adrabo conducted a sentiment analysis of 1.5 million tweets over a 20-day period in 50 countries, and he found the African mood on Twitter mostly negative. 74% of the tweets analyzed in 50 African countries are negative, 10% are positive, 16% are neutral. The only exception is Madagascar, with more balanced sentiment ratings of 44% positive, 44% negative, and 12% neutral tweets. The findings support that Madagascar is the happiest country on the continent, but it could be attributed to tweets generated by tourists visiting the world's 4th largest island. Sierra Leone in West Africa had the highest negative sentiment at 80%. South African all shares up 5.91% year to date. Dollar rand back at around the 1207.91 level. Egyptian pound steady as you like at 762.92. Egyptian stock market, which was up much more, is only up 3.14% year to date, but still has had an extraordinary bull run since Sisi came to power. BBC Andrew H. tweeted, General Buhari, President in waiting, watches final results, and a bit later he was named President. Muhammadu Buhari won Nigeria's presidency on Tuesday, the first time in 16 years of democracy that an opposition candidate has defeated a sitting president. Look at that old car. That's his only car since Sergeant Garba Abdullahi, who had been posted at Buhari's gate by the Nigerian military. This is a man of the people, not like the corrupt guys. The Nigerian all-share bounced 2.13% yesterday, and it's now down 7.02%. The challenge around the Naira still remains. If I was advising the president, I'd say do it big, do it now. Get it out of the way. The Ghana Stock Exchange is down 1.73% year to date and has been on the mend, in point of fact, for the last few sessions. Obama, last election behind him, plans first visit as president to Kenya. This is a report in the New York Times. For years, Kenya has been a political headache for President Obama and a geopolitical headache for the United States. But now, in his 7th year in office, with his election behind him, Mr. Obama has decided to embrace his heritage by visiting the land of his father for the first time as president. Travelled to Kenya in July to co-host a forum on entrepreneurship as part of an effort to support economic development in Africa. The White House announced Monday, in the process the president may hope to exorcise some of the ghosts that have haunted his relationship with his family's home country, so much that he once felt obliged to produce a birth certificate to prove he was not born there. Until now, Mr. Obama has resolutely avoided stopping in Kenya while in office, bypassing it during 3 previous presidential trips to sub-Saharan Africa. In addition to the chattering, such a stop would presumably provoke among those who still refuse to believe he was born in the US. The idea of a visit to Kenya was also problematic on the diplomatic front because of political instability and charges of crimes against humanity lodged against the country's president. The case against the president has been dropped, and the perennial talk about Mr. Obama's birth has faded in the United States, so Mr. Obama seems to have concluded that a Kenyan trip is acceptable at home and abroad. As the White House announced the visit, it tried to present it as a powerful symbol of America's long-standing ties to Africa, as represented by its African-American president. Just as President Kennedy's historic visit to Ireland in 1963 celebrated the connections between Irish Americans and their forefathers, President Obama's trip will honour the strong historical ties between the US and Kenya and all of Africa, from the millions of Americans who trace their ancestry to the African continent. Choosing Kenya as the destination for GES underscores the fact that Africa, and Kenya in particular, has become a centre for innovation and entrepreneurship. Equity Group plans to expand to 10 countries in the next 5 years at a cost of 200 billion shillings, got a 20 billion shilling war chest for African buyouts, already signed loan agreements for $400 million, and Tuesday created additional shares worth 20 billion shillings, which is another $250 million. The bank currently operates in 5 countries, said it will raise the remaining 160 billion through a rights issue or a secondary initial public offering. Equity plans to enter Ethiopia, Burundi, and the DRC in the next 2 years before expanding southwards to Mozambique, Malawi, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. The bank will turn to West Africa after 5 years, eyeing Nigeria, Ghana, and Cameroon. Some countries it is difficult to start from scratch because they are too big, so we will enter by acquiring a medium-tier bank and upscale it. For acquisition, we will give shares in Equity Bank instead of cash, which is why we are asking you to create new shares, said the CEO, James Wangi. So the bank will make acquisitions in 3 countries, with the rest being new investments. I'll put up a link for Equity Group's share price data. It's up 4% year to date, trades on a trading PE of 11.231. Kenyan Wall Street tweeted East African Breweries to sell its 100% of Central Glass Industries, CGI. I'll put up a link for EABL's share price data. Safaricom closed at a record, I think it is now for the 8th consecutive session, yesterday. Have a look at this chart of Nairobi land prices. The Nairobi All Shares up 7.5% year to date, much of it because of Safaricom. The NSE 20 is up 2.66% year to date, has been underperforming the All Share. That's because of the big cap outperformance. Once again, thank you for stopping by. I am grateful.